Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Pleasure to rise and speak in this budget policy debate. Well, was that the first 10-minute speech we've seen from the New Act Party? Was that history in the making? Because Judith Collins and David Seymour together, what a team. But I think that Mr Seymour, just a bit of advice, you might have to fight to take the first part of the call so that you can establish your right to be the leader with Judith as your deputy, or maybe it's the other way around. I'm not so sure, but look, I think that worked quite well together. You know, you should explore it. You should explore that, Mr Seymour, because I think the National Party would be ever grateful, and probably so would Judith Collins. But, Mr Speaker, what I want to actually get back to is that Judith Collins, at the moment, is still speaking as a National MP, and her theme was pretty clear. New Zealanders, be grateful, she said. Your life might be rubbish. You might be having a hard time getting a job, you might be having a terrible time feeding the kids, your housing costs are going through the roof and your wages are not keeping up, let alone your incomes if you're on any other form of government assistance. But the message from the National Party is be grateful. That's what they expect the New Zealand public to be over their budget policy statement. Well, I can tell you, Mr Speaker, yes you, Mr Speaker, and the rest of the House, who isn't feeling very grateful, and that is the businesses and the workers up and down this country, in every nook and cranny of this country, in every industry and every sector, who know now that they are being overcharged to the tune of $350 million a year, being overcharged in ACC levies. And why? Well, even the Prime Minister admitted it yesterday. It's because the Cabinet, the National Cabinet, ignored the advice they've got from ACC, from Treasury, from Mobi, from all of their own officials, and they have hiked the levy rates up higher so that they can get to budget surplus in 2014, 2015, like they promised the New Zealand public. So workers and companies and organisations and the public service, all of those organisations are paying for John Key and Bill English's election promise. They are paying through the nose to prop up the illusion of a budget surplus. Now, here on the Labor benches, we believe in budget surpluses and we know how to deliver them because we did those for 9 years in a row. We delivered budget surplus, but we didn't do it through that sort of jiggery-pokery. What we did was we had economic growth. I know, they laugh because they don't understand what economic growth is. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that promise that Bill English and John Key gave to the electorate, wouldn't it be brilliant if that was brought about by economic growth, rather than the slim budget surplus that they're hoping to achieve this year, that they're struggling to achieve but hoping to achieve? Wouldn't it be better if that had come about by economic growth when in fact it's been brought about by an overcharge in ACC levies? That's the truth of the matter, because they have failed to grow the economy, except for in one instance. The earthquake, the Christchurch earthquake, as terrible as it was, did this government a favour, because currently the rebuild that is going on in Canterbury is the only sign of economic growth that is going on. That plus, so a natural disaster, plus the overcharge in ACC levies are the thing that might just get this government scraping through, scraping through into budget surplus, even after they have made, as a Cabinet, a deliberate decision. Thank you, Mr Speaker. This is a 10-minute call? This is a 10-minute call.
Order. I was advised by the opposition whip that this call was split between Mr Cosgrove and yourself. It's been changed, okay? You have another 6 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mr Speaker. It did feel like an awfully fast 10 minutes, although the New Act Party's 10 minutes seem to drag somewhat, I've got to say. So it's getting a little bit hard to judge. But, Mr Speaker, what we've learned in the past few days is that, yes, the small businesses and the medium-sized businesses and even the large corporations and all the staff who they employ up and down the country are in fact being overcharged. Now, we've put it to the government that they've been overcharged to the tune of $350 million every year because the government has failed to reduce ACC levies to the level that ACC has recommended. The government has not contested that figure. I just want to say that again. The government has had plenty of opportunity over the last 2 days to contest that figure. They have not. So what does that mean for ordinary New Zealanders, and what does it mean for our economy? Because actually, if that $350 million was circulating in our local economy, rather than sitting in the government's coffers, propping up the illusion of a government surplus in the government's accounts, but if it was, here's the irony, if it was back in the economy, it would be helping to create that economic growth, and it would be creating jobs. Infometrics, an independent group of analysis, have come up with a figure of 700 jobs. I think that's conservative, but they are an independent group, and so I'm not going to criticise their work. They've said if we charge the correct levy for ACC instead of the trumped-up levy that this government has come up with because they're trying to create that illusion of a budget surplus, then there would be at least 700 jobs, 700 more jobs created out of that, because business would have that money in their pockets, and they would be able to invest in better technology, they'd be able to invest in their workforce, they'd be able to employ more staff. And the other economic stimulus is this: if that money was also back in the pockets of workers instead of sitting in the government's accounts, that would be getting spent in the local economy. This is just, you know, this is finance 101, Mr. Seymour. But if workers actually had that money instead of it being paid in levies sitting in their accounts, that money would be getting spent locally, that would stimulate the economy, that would also create more jobs. It's a pretty simple equation. Even Kim Campbell from the Northern Employers and Manufacturers Association gets this. When it was put to him whether the proposal coming from the Labour leader Andrew Little was correct, that the government was in fact overcharging ACC levies, he said he's dead right. That was the Employers and Manufacturers Association talking about the Labour leader Andrew Little and his assertion, our assertion, that there is an overcharge happening that is quite wrong to all those businesses in the ACC levies. Kim Campbell says he's dead right, because he knows, as all the businesses do throughout New Zealand, that they are in fact being overcharged. They're being used as a cash cow to prop up the government's idea of trying to get to a surplus, no matter how slim. But it is an illusion, and New Zealanders now know it for what it is. So, Mr. Speaker, if this budget policy statement was to be of any use to New Zealanders, it would recognise that fact. It would actually, the government would come clean. Well, they kind of have actually. They've said,
10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. They've said, yeah, we are using it to prop up the budget surplus. They're being honest about it. What that tells us is that they have failed. They have failed to bring that surplus about by actually managing this country properly and its fiscal management. I feel sorry for Nikki Kaye. She's the Minister for ACC. She must be so disappointed that instead of her Finance Minister and her government actually stimulating the economy and bringing about a surplus through economic growth, that they have had to give up, say that they've failed, and instead put their hands into the pockets of the ACC Corporation, go through the ACC Corporation to dip their fingers into the pockets of workers and employers up and down this country, simply to try and bring about a promise that they made in the election that they haven't been able to bring about by growing the economy. So they couldn't deliver on that election promise by fair means, so they are now doing it by foul.
Mr. Speaker, I call Andrew Bailey.